Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, Nick Wright's about to stop on by. We're going to go probably blow through an hour to an hour and a half today. We got a lot of things to talk about. Hey, before we do that with Nick Wright, I want you to download the GameTime app. It takes 90 seconds. I've used it. It's easy. The GameTime app, authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. Tickets get cheaper the closer you get to the first pitch. And the thing about baseball, now the games matter more, first of all. Second of all, baseball is one of those sports because there's a big volume of games. A lot of times I've decided to go to a baseball game in an afternoon. Somebody calls, boom, I got 2 tickets, you go. GameTime, by the way, if you put in the redeem code, Colin, C-O-L-I-N, $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with the GameTime app. You download the GameTime app, put in the code Colin, $20 off your first purchase. The GameTime app, lowest prices guaranteed, last-minute tickets, really, really easy for people with busy lives. GameTime makes things simple, quick, and a $20 off discount. Here's an interesting topic, and I bring this up because you're one of the bigger NBA fans, is that some things don't sound comforting, and they may sound almost appalling, but they're true. And that treating your employees and paying them more than they deserve is really bad business. And that the reason the NFL is king, it's virtually impossible to find a bad contract in the league. I can remember Albert Hainsworth for about a year, got paid a ton with the Patriots. Yeah. You remember it because it's so infrequent. Yeah. It may be the only bad contract for the Patriots. Every NBA team has a terrible contract. Some have 3. You know, before James Dolan got distracted by the sphere, it was like half the contracts for the Knicks were bad contracts. Is that one of the reasons that the NFL is king is because they have a weak union, and that sounds terrible to say. Players have, like Brandon Aiyuk, they're like, no, we're not going to cave. There's a bunch of good receivers in next year's draft. We'll just go draft them. Now, I think they want him. They're furious. They know the window's shrinking. Their players are getting older. But I think, I've talked to a lot of guys in the NBA. I saw Frank Vogel the other night at dinner. You know, LA, you see a lot of pro coaches, like especially where I live. They're all in the beach communities. And football coaches are happier. Basketball coaches are all miserable, even the successful ones. And the reason being is they have cost certainty. They have control. In the NFL, you can be productive, but you're a pain in the ass. I'm moving off you. I mean, 7 rounds of players, half the league's undrafted. In the NBA, after the 14th pick, you run out of players. And this Brandon Aiyuk situation's interesting because in the NBA, he would get paid. And he may go to coach fired. And in the NFL, they're like, no, we got a bunch of good players. Draft will give us 9 receivers. We'll give you a number. I mean, you're going to make like $23 million. You're not making 30. And I think it really, so my point being is, not giving the employee everything they want is why the NFL succeeds. It forces players to get their shit together. Like, you don't get that 9-year baseball contract where like year 4, 5, and 6, you're like, I'm getting my money. The union's so strong. And Brandon Aiyuk, the Niners are saying, take it or leave it. Take it or leave it.
Well, all right. So I think I look at, I agree with some of what you're saying.
You're a union guy.
But I wanted yes, I'm definitely a union guy, but I look at this, I look at the NBA and the Aiyuk thing separately. So let me deal with the NBA thing first. I actually think a huge part of the issues that you're describing with the NBA are caused by the individual player max. I think so many if the NBA salary cap was $150 million, and if you wanted to give Joker 140 of it, you could. So many of the complaints of the NBA go away for two reasons. One is one of the reasons NBA guys get what I would call non-contract benefits, which is, I don't want to practice today, let's not practice today. Those types of things is because if you're artificially capping what you can pay them and everyone can pay them the same, you have to pay them elsewhere. You have to be like, okay, you're actually worth $100 million a year. I can only pay you 50. So, and everyone can pay you 50. So therefore, we have to give you these fringe benefits like, what they give college football coaches, country club memberships, whatever, in order to make up that delta. The other thing the individual player cap does is it makes it to where the middle class NBA is wildly overpaid. And that's what people think fans are going to get pissed when NBA guys are making $1 million a game. They're not. They're not going to be mad when Jason Tatum, who's the best player on a champion, makes $1 million a game. Not more mad than there are right now when he makes $500,000 a game. Where people will get mad is when they got mad at Tobias Harris. They're like, wait, you're the 63rd best player in the league and you're making $30 million a year. But that exists because of the individual player max. So that's the NBA part, in my opinion. The Aiyuk thing, what I think is fascinating about Aiyuk is people are wondering, why are the Niners going to cave? Why are the Niners, who are going to get nothing back of substance for this season, when they've got to win, when it's the last year, theoretically, when Purdy's cheap, when Trent's $36 million, why are they going to cave and trade him at an inopportune time? And I said it on the show today, and I think this will resonate with people if they think not of NFL teams, but of their own workplace, which is, it is the leverage Aiyuk has is, I can make it miserable here. And people don't think about that. Think about any workplace you've been in where someone who's important and unfireable or ish comes in, has a bad attitude, is shit talking other people, is bringing the morale, like bringing every room they walk into, you're like, oh, that kills the vibe. That kills working anywhere. And I think that is, oddly, the leverage Aiyuk has. The leverage Aiyuk has is, this can be miserable, guys. And if people doubt how much of an impact that can have, read the ESPN article today on what happened to the Eagles. Eagles were 10-1. They had won like 23 of 25 games. Went to a Super Bowl, did all that. And then what happened to them? Well, it seems like the coach and the quarterback couldn't be in a room one-on-one together, and the whole thing collapsed. So I think, oddly, the leverage Aiyuk has, or any of these guys have, is I can be a dick and I can make team meetings and the locker room suck. And if I'm too good to cut, what are you going to do?
But I think in the NFL, people just move on. I think in the NBA, you don't.
Yes.
But in the NFL,
that part's totally true.
I mean, I said this today. I would take that University of Washington offensive lineman, first round guy. I'll say, you can have Aiyuk. You have to pay him, though. We'll take that offensive lineman. And the fans will think, what a terrible deal. But the Niners' biggest weakness is their offensive line outside of Trent Williams. Give us your first pick, because Ayuk's worth a first rounder. We just want a guy that can play now. And the Steelers, and by the way, he's not scheduled to start for the Steelers this year anyway. And by the way, the other part is that offensive coaches, I will say this till I die, are better with offensive line than defensive coaches. Andy Reid and Sean McVay reboot that thing every 2 years brilliantly. Mike Tomlin cannot figure the offensive line out. Pete Carroll at the Seahawks, great draft picks, couldn't figure it out. He hired terrible O-line coaches. Sean McDermott, outside of left tackle, revolving door, can't figure the offensive line out. McVay and Reid, Sean Payton goes to the Broncos. It's terrible. Last year, his first O-line, 7th by PFF. Dotson was a guard. The Steelers was not going to start for the Steelers. Sean Payton gets him for like a 5th round pick. Sean McVay gets him for a 5th round pick for the Rams. He's the highest rated guard in the league last year. Was not going to start for the Steelers.
Really?
So my takeaway is give him Aiyuk. We'll take that interior offensive lineman. The fans will think we got just used, but we don't have to pay that kid for 4 years. You got to pay.
Oh, well, no, I think that would be a great deal. Listen, if that's the guy the Steelers spent their first round pick on this past year,
Ayuk's worth a first round pick.
Fontenot? Is that who you're talking about? Yeah, 100%. And right, and the problem with trading Aiyuk is not trading Aiyuk. It's trading Aiyuk in August if the compensation is next year's draft when you're trying to win this year's Super Bowl. Like I don't know if you remember it, but you broke the news to me live on TV that Tyreek Hill had been traded. I was on with you, and it happened. And in the moment, I was beside myself. And then the details came out, and then I had more time. And I will admit, this is a little bit playing the result because the Chiefs haven't, they've won every Super Bowl that's been played since the trade. But the key was they're going to get 4 players for this year's team. Like it was happening before. So they're going to lose Tyreek, and they got a first round pick, a third, a fifth, whatever it was. But the draft hadn't happened yet. And so it's like, oh, they're going to be able to improve these different things and use it right now, as opposed to trading post-draft for future picks, which is just always such a bummer. It's like, man, he's going to help us today, and you're trading him for help down the road. That's fine to do if you're a rebuilding team that doesn't care about winning. But the Niners' best chance of winning a Super Bowl that hasn't already happened is right now. Because Brock Purdy's going to go from wildly underpaid, no matter what you think of him, to comically overpaid, no matter what you think of him. So the window is this moment. And that, I believe that he's going to the Steelers. Andrew Filipponi out of Pittsburgh said the Niners and Steelers have agreed. They're waiting on Aiyuk and the Steelers to come to terms on the money. Can I ask you another Aiyuk question before we move on to other stuff?
Hey, football fans, if you're looking to dominate your fantasy league next year, then we've got the channel for you. From the NFL draft through training camp in week 1 to Super Bowl Sunday, FantasyPros is the home of football content you cannot afford to miss. Subscribe today, and your team will be in championship form in no time.
Is it a little odd to you that Aiyuk is this much more interested in Pittsburgh than New England? Because Pittsburgh does not have a settled quarterback situation. Right. We don't know who it is. New England, I get it's a rookie, but it's the 3rd pick of the draft. He wanted to go to Washington, who has the 2nd pick of the draft. Now, I understand he played with Jaden before, but the reporting out of New England is they offered upwards of $32 million a year. The Niners accepted the terms, and Aiyuk was like, I won't play there. That would make sense if it's like, no, I want to go to Baltimore and play with Lamar. I want to go to Buffalo and play with Josh Allen. But it's like, no, I won't play with the Patriots and their defensive-minded head coach with Drake May at quarterback because I want to go to the Steelers, who are having a quarterback competition between a first-round pick that might wash out and Russell Wilson on his 3rd team. That's weird to me that I can't quite figure.
So players are all, and this is not a criticism, but a reality, selfish, and they probably should be. A GM can GM forever, an owner owns forever, a coach can coach until the 70s. A player's got like 7 peak years in football, and then it's over. So they're selfish.
Yeah.
So if you were 22, 23 years old, and you looked around the NFL, if I said to you, you could go to this place, it is player friendly. You can be dramatic. You can talk trash.
Okay, that makes sense.
Pittsburgh is a player heaven. Tomlin's not a big disciplinarian. Tomlin almost ran onto the field to make a tackle himself once. He is
he almost tripped the late Jacoby Jones.
He is very motivational. It's like Pete Carroll was viewed player friendly. That's why when he didn't pay Earl Thomas flipped him off because it was like players just thought Pete gets guys paid. Right. And so when you think of New England, their brand is rigid, the Crafts, not player friendly, take a pay cut, even though it may not be the reality now that Brady and Belichick are gone. The brand of New England is cold. Boston is sort of fences make good neighbors. Pittsburgh is a good time for players.
So I mean that's got to be it, because it can't be. I understand wide receiver being like quarterback, but And I don't love Drake May, but he's third pick of the draft. Like, it's the Patriots would not have traded the third pick of the draft for Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. That would not have happened. Right. So it's just that part is weird to me. I want to ask you one other thing before I know this is your show. I read that ESPN article about Sirianni and Hurts. And man, oh man, it reminded me a lot of what we learned about Carroll and Russell Wilson, which is make a Super Bowl with a quarterback that some believed in, some didn't. The coach still views the quarterback a certain way. The quarterback then's like, no, I view myself a different way. I got paid and I want to play a different way. And it obviously for Carroll and Wilson, it lasted for years and then it broke up at the end. But when I'm reading that Sirianni still wanted run the ball, do certain things, and Jalen Hurts, like, you paid me $250 million, I'm going to show you what I can do. It reminded me so much of Pete and Russ at the end that for Philly, I think Philly has a really good roster. There are a lot of big warning signs about the GM picked the coordinators. That the head coach and quarterback are not on the same page. That was not a great article.
No, but the difference is, I'll give you an example. So Russell Wilson has had 3 different coaches. 3. His college coach, he was a wildly successful, productive college quarterback. His coach basically said, I'm gonna go with Mike Glennon.
Yes.
Pete Carroll, 2 Super Bowls with him. I'm over you. Sean Payton actually resurrected him a little bit. He wasn't the problem.
And said, go
away.
3
coaches, different levels of success, bailed on him. That tells me that is a Russell Wilson issue. I've had multiple teammates rip him, like notable guys.
Yep.
So there's a Russell component here. And I think I'm not being, anti-Russ, but when 3 things happen, if you rob 3 banks, you're a bank robber.
No, that's right. And where it's funny. You brought up the NC State thing. I think that's relevant. Yes. I think it's like, wait, so that was and then he goes to Wisconsin and it's awesome. It's like he keeps, aside from in Denver, he produces everywhere, and the coaches seem really hesitant to give him the full keys to the car, which is a weird thing. With that said, Colin, Jalen Hurts did have to transfer from Alabama.
Yeah. But the difference is Pete Carroll, college and pro, is a championship level coach.